All right, get ready to go light speed as we dive deep into the making of Star Wars.
A film that almost wasn't made.
Yeah, it's hard to believe, right?
Mhm.
I mean, Star Wars, this cultural phenomenon, almost didn't see the light of day.
It's true.
So we're talking about Hollywood in the 70s.
Yeah.
Like, what was the scene back then?
Yeah.
Sci-fi? Was it a hit or a miss?
Oh, it was a tough sell, that's for sure.
Really?
Big budget sci-fi. Studios had been burned, and they were really hesitant to take risks.
I can imagine.
Yeah, they were looking for surefire hits, and sci-fi just didn't fit the bill at the time.
So was there like a specific movie, a cautionary tale that made studios wary of sci-fi?
Well, Forbidden Planet, back in '56, that was a big one.
Forbidden Planet. Okay.
Yeah. Visually stunning film, groundbreaking special effects for its time, critically acclaimed.
Sounds promising.
It was, but it bombed at the box office.
Really?
Bombed.
Wow.
And to make matters worse, the studio behind it went bankrupt.
Ouch. Talk about a cautionary tale.
Yeah, that's one way to put it.
Okay, so that's a whole lot of don't make sci-fi vibes in Hollywood.
Right.
But then, boom, Star Wars explodes onto the scene and blows everyone's minds.
It's true.
So what changed? What made Star Wars possible when other sci-fi films failed?
Well, you have to look beyond Hollywood to the world of literature.
Okay, interesting.
In the 1960s, sci-fi literature was thriving. Books like Heinlein's Stranger in a Strange Land, exploring themes of social change and evolution, really resonated with the counterculture.
Right, right.
And then there was Frank Herbert's Dune, this epic space opera with complex characters and rich world building.
A classic.
A true classic, and it showed just how hungry audiences were for imaginative, thought-provoking sci-fi.
So the appetite was there, but Hollywood just wasn't quite serving it up, right?
Exactly. They hadn't cracked the code yet.
Okay, but then you had a few game changers in the late 60s. Kubrick's 2001, A Space Odyssey, for one. Visually breathtaking, way ahead of its time.
Absolutely. Kubrick's use of music, pacing, those long, silent shots, it was revolutionary. He proved that sci-fi could be intelligent, thought-provoking, and visually stunning.
And let's not forget Planet of the Apes, that same year. It was a box office smash and showed that audiences were ready for sci-fi with a message, something with a bit of bite.
Absolutely. Planet of the Apes tackled social issues head-on, using sci-fi as a lens to examine prejudice and discrimination.
Right, so you have these films pushing the boundaries, but still, there was a lot of, let's just say, cheesy sci-fi out there.
Oh yeah, there were plenty of flops, movies with clunky special effects and paper-thin plots.
So even with 2001 and Planet of the Apes finding success, Star Wars was still a gamble.
A huge gamble.
But then a fateful meeting occurs. George Lucas, fresh off the success of American Graffiti, meets this incredibly talented artist, Ralph McQuarrie.
And that meeting, my friend, was a turning point in cinematic history.
All right, I'm intrigued. Tell me more about this McQuarrie guy.
Well, Lucas had this space opera swirling in his head, but studios just weren't biting.
I can see why they might be hesitant. It's a pretty out there concept.
Right. But then Lucas shows them McQuarrie's paintings and everything changes.
What was so special about his art? I mean, I've seen the Star Wars concept art. It's iconic.
It is. And it wasn't just concept art. It was like looking through a window into a fully realized galaxy.
Okay, I can see that.
McQuarrie's art was gritty, detailed, lived in. It wasn't squeaky clean spaceships and futuristic cities. It felt real.
So his art, that was the hook.
It was. It convinced those hesitant studio executives that Lucas wasn't pitching just another cheesy sci-fi flick.
He was pitching Star Wars.
Exactly. He was pitching Star Wars.
So McQuarrie's paintings helped bring Star Wars to life visually.
They did. They were instrumental.
But what about the characters themselves?
The casting.
Finding the right actors? I mean, that must have been crucial.
It was, absolutely.
I mean, those roles, they're iconic.
Oh, yeah.
And some of those casting stories are legendary.
Oh, they are.
Harrison Ford as Han Solo, for instance. I mean, wasn't he just a carpenter working on Lucas's studio at the time?
He was, yeah. Lucas had actually seen Ford in American Graffiti.
Okay.
But at the time, Ford was just there to do some carpentry work.
Right.
Fixing a door, in fact.
No way.
Yeah.
And that's how he landed the role of Han Solo.
Pretty much. Lucas saw him there, working on that door, and the rest is history.
Talk about a sliding doors moment.
I know, right? It's incredible.
So Ford was a bit of a happy accident.
You could say that.
What about the other actors? Any other interesting casting choices?
Oh, tons.
Really?
Like Anthony Daniels as C-3PO.
Okay, the Golden Droid.
That's the one.
Now, was he always meant to be this, sort of anxious, fussy character.
Well, here's the thing. Daniels wasn't immediately sold on the role just from reading the script.
Right.
It was actually Macquarie's artwork again.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So those paintings, they really were the heart of it all, huh?
They played a huge part. Daniels saw Macquarie's depiction of C-3PO, and he connected with it.
And then there's Peter Mayhew as Chewbacca.
Ah, Chewie.
He was perfect.
Oh,
Was he always envisioned as this towering, Wookiee?
absolutely. Mayhew's height, 7'3". That's what got him the role.
Wow, 7'3".
Yeah, he was a giant, but a gentle giant, which is exactly what Lucas wanted for Chewbacca.
He really brought a certain warmth to that character.
It did.
And then there's Darth Vader.
Ah, the Dark Lord of the Sith.
The voice.
Oh, that voice.
So iconic.
Chills every time.
Was that always James Earl Jones?
Actually, no.
Yeah.
The actor who physically played Vader on set, that was David Prowse, a bodybuilder.
Okay. Makes sense. He had the physique.
Right. But Lucas wasn't totally sold on Prowse's voice.
He wanted something else.
He wanted something darker, more powerful, more, I don't know, otherworldly.
Okay, I see where you're going with this.
So he brought in James Earl Jones,
That's the voice we hear in the film.
the one and only.
That's amazing.
It's movie magic at its finest.
It really is. It adds this whole other layer to the character.
It does. It gives him that aura of mystery, of menace.
All right, so we've got these amazing characters brought to life by this incredible cast.
It's true.
But we haven't even touched on the special effects.
Ah, yes. The special effects.
I mean, Star Wars, it revolutionized special effects.
It did. It changed everything.
But think about it. Back then, sci-fi films, they had this reputation
Yeah.
for, kind of cheesy special effects.
Wobbly spaceships, cheesy aliens, the works.
And Lucas, he wanted something different.
Oh, he did.
He wanted Star Wars to feel real, to transport audiences to another galaxy.
Exactly. He wanted to raise the bar.
And he wasn't afraid to take risks.
Not at all. In fact, he created his own special effects company.
Industrial Light and Magic.
ILM.
Legendary.
They were pioneers pushing the boundaries of what was possible.
So what kind of groundbreaking technology did they come up with?
Well, one of their biggest innovations was the Dijkstraflex camera system.
The Dijkstraflex. Okay, now that name sounds familiar, but help me out here. What was so special about it?
So picture this, right? You have these incredibly detailed models of spaceships and stuff, but you need a way to film them that makes them feel real.
Right, like they're actually moving through space.
Exactly. The Dijkstraflex was this revolutionary motion control camera rig.
Huh?
They could program it to move these models with incredible precision.
So it's like stop motion animation, but way more advanced.
Exactly. They could create these complex camera moves, these long, sweeping shots that made those space battles feel so dynamic, so real.
I'm thinking about that iconic shot of the Millennium Falcon being chased through the asteroid field.
Classic.
That was the Dijkstraflex.
That's right. That seamless blend of models and movement, that was all thanks to the Dijkstraflex.
Wow, that's incredible.
It really was a game changer.
So, ILM, they're pushing the boundaries of visual effects. But we can't forget about the sound.
The sound design in Star Wars is iconic.
Oh, absolutely. Like the lightsaber hum,
Yeah.
that's instantly recognizable.
Oh, yeah.
The roar of a TIE fighter, the Millennium Falcon going into hyperspace.
So distinct.
You hear those sounds, and you're transported to that galaxy far, far away.
Exactly. It's like you're right there in the action.
So how did they create such a unique and memorable sonic landscape?
Well, that's all thanks to the genius of Ben Burtt, the sound designer on Star Wars.
Ben Burtt, okay, gotta give him props.
Absolutely, he was a master of his craft.
So what was his approach? Was it all, like, synthesizers and futuristic sounds?
Actually, he used a lot of everyday sounds, but he manipulated them in really creative ways.
Like what? Give me an example.
Okay, you know that iconic lightsaber hum?
Oh, yeah. Who doesn't?
That's actually the sound of a film projector motor combined with feedback from a television set.
No way, really. I
Yeah.
never would have guessed that.
Yeah, he was always experimenting, finding the extraordinary in the ordinary.
That's so cool. So he wasn't afraid to, like, get his hands dirty, experiment if he
Oh, absolutely. He recorded sounds from all sorts of crazy places.
Like what? Give me another one.
Okay, Chewbacca's roar. You know that iconic sound.
Yeah, it's a mix of, like, animal sounds, right?
It is. He used bear growls, walrus barks, and even sounds from his own dog.
His dog. Seriously.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
He was always looking for those unique textures, those sounds that would bring the Star Wars universe to life.
It worked.
It really did. Those sounds are burned into our collective consciousness at this point.
Absolutely. Okay, so you've got these amazing visuals, the iconic sound design, But then comes the task of putting it all together.
The editing process.
That must have been intense. It was a huge undertaking, especially back then.
I mean, they were working with groundbreaking technology, multiple storylines, complex action sequences.
Right, and keep in mind, this was way before computer editing software.
Oh, yeah, good point.
They were literally cutting and splicing film together by hand.
Wow, talk about a labor of love.
They were working with these huge machines called moviolas.
I've seen pictures. Those things were massive.
Yeah, and they had reels and reels of film everywhere. It must have been like trying to organize a hurricane.
Pretty much. And they're on a tight deadline. The studio's breathing down their necks.
I can't imagine the pressure.
It was intense, but they pulled it off.
They did, and the rest, as they say, is history.
History indeed.
So, Star Wars is finished. The studio finally gets to see it. What's their reaction?
You'd think they'd be blown away, right?
Right. This groundbreaking film.
But they weren't.
No.
Not at all. They were actually pretty underwhelmed.
Really? Why? What didn't they like?
They just didn't get it. They thought it was too weird, too different from anything they'd seen before.
Too weird. It's Star Wars.
I know, right? But back then, it was a tough sell.
Wow. So Lucas takes this huge risk, pours his heart and soul into this project, and the studio's like, yeah,
Pretty much.
that's got to sting.
Oh, yeah. It was a huge blow to Lucas and the whole team.
No, what do they do?
Well, they went back and made some adjustments, just trying to smooth out some of the rough edges.
Trying to make it more palatable for the studio.
Exactly, but they also knew they couldn't compromise their vision entirely.
They had to stay true to what they believed in.
They did, and thank goodness for that.
Right. So they've got this film that the studio doesn't really get. How do they even begin to market it?
Well, that's where Charlie Lippincott comes in,
The marketing guru.
the one and only.
Okay, so what did he do? How do you market a movie like Star Wars?
Carefully, he knew that traditional marketing wasn't going to cut it for a film this unique.
So he had to think outside the box.
Exactly. He needed to generate hype, build a fan base before the film even came out.
Okay, and how did he do that?
Well, for starters, he got the novelization of the film released months before the movie premiered.
Really? That's a pretty unusual move, isn't it?
It was, but it worked. It got people talking, speculating about what the film would be like.
Intrigued.
Exactly. And he also arranged for screenings at sci-fi conventions, get it in front of the fans who would appreciate it most.
Word of mouth. There's nothing more powerful.
Exactly. He created a buzz, a sense of excitement that just kept building.
So by the time the film premiered, people were ready.
They were lining up around the block to see it.
And the rest, as they say, is history.
History indeed.
Star Wars became this global phenomenon, this cultural touchstone.
It captured the imaginations of an entire generation.
And it all started with a simple idea, a belief in the power of storytelling, and a whole lot of hard work.
That's the magic of filmmaking.
All right, it really is. Well, folks, there you have it. A deep dive into the making of Star Wars.
A film that defied the odds and changed cinema forever.
From those early struggles in Hollywood to the groundbreaking special effects and the iconic characters, Star Wars is proof that even the most far-fetched ideas can capture the hearts and minds of millions.
And may the Force be with you.